Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Conservative Circle. Today, I am joined by a very special guest, and that would be Jared Trined from Freedom Uncensored. And I think I said your name incorrectly. Can you just state your last name?
Trinidad?
All right, Trinidad. So, thanks for joining, Jared. So, you started Freedom Uncensored. So, what is Freedom Uncensored, and what is Freedom Uncensored's mission?
Honestly, Freedom Uncensored started as a Republican conservative account. I felt the need to do something right after Charlie Kirk's assassination, but I felt something from the beginning of the BLM defund the police movement. I've always wanted to do something, it just didn't feel like the time. And after Charlie's assassination, I think a lot of people remember how hard it was losing the person we all looked up to. Charlie was the glue of the Conservative and Republican Party and the youth, and it really felt like Turning Point was what helped all of us have a voice in the Conservative Party. But after his assassination, after Erica became CEO and we all saw what happened there, I really felt like Turning Point wasn't going to do it anymore. I really felt like Turning Point was going to now be more for the funds, for the money, for the conservative GOP. And I felt something else needed to come out. And that's when I came with the idea of Freedom Uncensored, a not a non politically assigned company defined as American values with an independent take on politics.
That's very interesting. So, you've had an interest in politics for how long, Jared?
Oof, I would say since fifth grade when I ran for class president.
Did you win?
Yes.
Well, congratulations. I knew
Thank you.
you'd
Yeah.
win. um, so this last question here, how can people get involved with Freedom Uncensored? How can they start chapters and how can they do that?
Right. So Freedom Uncensored is not only a chapter program. Freedom Uncensored is not only a morning talk show. Freedom Uncensored is a full range America First company. And we do have the company side, which is the more formal, where you can become a content creator. You can become one of our ambassadors, help us with the merch, help us sell the websites and apps that we do offer to help people. We also do partnerships with brands and companies to sell American made products for the American people. And we do have college and high school and working on middle school chapters called the Freedom Uncensored Club, Freedom Uncensored Chapters, whatever you want to call them. The way it works is that you reach out to us. It can be directly through Instagram. Tell us Freedom Uncensored, I want to start a chapter. And then we'll hit you up probably less than 2 days, and then we can get the work running. It's not that hard. Anybody can start a chapter. All it takes is will and the energy to want to do something for yourself and for others around you.
So this is a newly started up thing. So this was started, I believe, right after Charlie Kirk's assassination. That's when I started my podcast. I started it. It first started September 15th. Not doing so well, and then I got to network, meet people, and it's doing all right. And I just thank you for coming on. So, when was this started?
I truly believe it was 4 days after his assassination. Actually, it was the day of. I remember the day of, I wanted to say something out there. I wanted to say that it wasn't fair, it wasn't just. And on my personal platform, I felt like it wasn't enough to do. So I went out, created a new account. I think I called it uncensored first. And then I said, we will never forget what Charlie said. This was unjust, this was unfair. America has fallen. This isn't where we should be after all the progress he has made in the youth. From there, on that same week, I changed it to Freedom Uncensored because I reflected on the shirt that he was wearing that day, and I reflected on why they assassinated him, and that really spoke to me.
Yeah. So, it's now been 5 months since his assassination. Of course, right now it's February 10th. This episode will go out Friday, February 13th. But it's another an emotional day because it's now marked 5 months since we lost the greatest voice in our generation. Jared,
Yeah.
anything that you would like to add in there?
A lot of people have asked me that if I feel like we are Charlie, if I feel that's the movement I'm going for. Other people ask me if I feel like I want to be the next Charlie Kirk. My honest take is that nobody will ever fill his shoes. Nobody can ever be the next Charlie Kirk. Um, Personally, I think it's bogus to say we are Charlie. I think it's the same as saying we are George Floyd. Um, I think it's important to say Charlie was an inspiration and he taught me a lot. So in that, I reflect every day. I reflect every month. It's really hard for me as somebody who looked up to him a lot. I remember everything he used to say. I think, what is the purpose of what I am doing this for? So I say I do it because every day I want to uphold a voice and I want to hold unity just as Charlie did. Because instead of being Charlie, I know there were a lot of things too I didn't agree with him at certain points. All I can say is I want to be the Jared Trinidad that can become closest to Charlie.
Yeah. So yeah, no one will replace Charlie Kirk. No one can replace Charlie Kirk. Not the new CEO, Erica Kirk, his wife. No one can.
Right.
Let's move to a different topic. So you are from California. You are in the LA area. So
Exactly.
for governor, um, there's running for governor on the Democratic side is Katie Porter, and running on the Republican side is Steve Hilton.
Right.
So there are more candidates in there. This is an all-party primary, so it's not just like we have a Republican primary and we have a Democratic primary. So, what are your thoughts on just both of the candidates that I've listed here?
Honestly, talking about Steve Hilton and Katie Porter, I think they're the first ones that really leapt in with name recognition. I don't think any of them can really run the country. We've seen from Steve Hilton that he's just another billionaire. We've seen from Katie Porter, she's another Democrat that wants to come in with a socialist agenda. Um, who is Katie Porter? When I look at her, the only thing I can be reminded of is a cat lady. And when I look at Steve Hilton, he's just another bald dude trying to make name recognition. So I don't think either of them are fit, but I do think there are other Democrats on the board that might be fit to run California. The only reason why I say that is because California has been known to not have a California Republican governor. And if a Republican were to be elected as governor, I think best fit would probably be Chad Bianco. As
Since, yeah,
some may know, is he is a sheriff in the Riverside County area. And if anybody knows, being a sheriff has to do with politics. One of our biggest issues is public safety and the housing crisis. And I think when it comes to that, he's the one that has better experience and would probably best fit for that role.
yeah. So, if I'm not mistaken, there hasn't been a Republican governor in that state since Arnold Schwarzenegger. Is that right?
I believe so. Yeah, he was most likely the
So,
last
I mean,
one.
I think that was what was that 90s, early 2000s. So that was, I'd say, yeah, that's a pretty long time. Just like my state of Florida, we're gonna have another Republican governor. About what? But which governor? What Republican does Florida want?
Right.
So, you know, let's move forward. So, um, there's so what candidate is qualified for California? I mean, on the Democratic side, or are you going for a Republican?
I honestly think this is the year we might genuinely have our first Republican governor in a long time. So no matter what, my vote is going to be Republican, but choosing who is going to be a tricky one. I really am pretty set on Chad Bianco. He comes from a
Hmm.
law enforcement background. He has the facts on housing and how to fix it. He has the experience of dealing with politics when it comes to officer needs and public safety in communities. So I think we need somebody who comes from a law enforcement background to fix a lot of the issues we currently have now in California, especially with everybody having a fencing fold. Anywhere you go in California, you see somebody on a fencing fold. And we need to stop the war on narcotics. And that begins in California because we're the ones closest to the border with the highest amount of illegal immigrants per year coming to California, starting in San Diego, Los Angeles, and all the way to San Francisco.
Yeah. So you mentioned just a minute ago about you remember Katie Porter as the crazy cat lady. I remember her as first she can't answer questions in her interview, and then
Exactly.
she yells at her one of her staff members, and
Right.
you know what? Her staff member actually corrected her on the video that in this video that I saw. I mean, it's everywhere, and I mean she was throwing the f bomb. So um, I don't think she's qualified, but I mean also
Right.
look at California. I mean it's such a democratic a state. So I mean, it's not going to be a surprise if there's a another Democrat, um,
Exactly.
this election coming up in November. But again, what Democrat are you going to vote for? What not you, but what Democrat do you want to run the state, or just what candidate? Okay, so the top issues in California: cost of living crisis. So there's I mean, homelessness. 70% of Californians say that the housing cost is a major issue. And you're from California, so you see all the homelessness. So, I mean, what do you think? What are you thinking whenever you just see all this homelessness? And yeah,
I mean, the I used to work in homeless issues. I used to help people stop being homeless, getting them that subsidized housing. Um, the biggest issue is always the funding. How do you manage your funding? Because everybody wants to fund housing programs, but they're starting at the top. And the way I see it is we have to start at the bottom. We have to individually select people and put them in houses. Because if you start at the top, it works like this: you give your money to a company, and then there's a pyramid scheme, insane pyramid scheme. You give it to the
yeah,
CEO to give it to the nonprofit. The CEO gives it to its strategist and its analyst. From there, it goes to the employees who actually have to find the subsidized housing. From there, it goes to the legal team who has to take care about any insurance that any person might need if they're moved into the unit. From there, it goes to the committee that's going to be in charge of moving those homeless people. And then at the end of the day, it goes all the way to the homeless person. So it's like if you want to fund a unhousing program, it costs millions of dollars. But if you can pick individual homeless off the street and move them directly into a housing unit without the need of all those programs scamming people and shoving money in their pocket, it's so much more effective. Um, we also saw how in California, one of the biggest issues why people were moving out of California was actually because homelessness causes unsafe communities and neighborhoods. And a lot of these homeless, for some reason, tend to go and make tents and make properties around schools or around churches or around hospitals. And that's really harmful for anybody who hardly can take care of themselves.
yeah. And then also a lot of crime in Los
Right.
Angeles and California. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, you see it on the news all the time. So, what do you make of the crime there?
So it's not as bad as the Bronx. Um,
Mhm.
Funny enough, the other day I was looking into the crime, and turns out Compton, our highest rated area for crime, does not have a police station. So that's embarrassing. Um, we have an under amount of officers in Los Angeles. Nobody really knows how many police officers we have. One day, Karen Bass says we have 10,000, which is 4,000 less than we did the last 6 years, which would mean we have 14,000. But then we have this lady who's now running for CD4 as a Congress member saying that she does not want to fund more policing, and she won't admit it, but she says it, and you can tell. She will not fund more policing if she wins mayor of Los Angeles, which would be terrible because from 10,000 we're down to 8,000. And then in a city of 4 million, how can you only have 8,000 when New York has above 17,000 police officers? So our crime units are very limited. Our detectives are very limited. The officers out there on the field are way much more limited. And we can't answer every call. And the calls that are answered over 6 minutes of wait time. It only takes 2 seconds for a person to die. So people aren't being prepared. The academy isn't moving fast enough. The background checks aren't moving fast enough. All of that has to do also between the CA and the DA that overwatch that area and the way that units are built. Even though LAPD is the best, highly recommended and achieving department for policing, the numbers aren't adding up to that.
Yeah. So we just uncovered the cost of living crisis, the crime in Los Angeles and California, and the unemployment. Unemployment is at a high. That's not just in California. That's all over. I
Right.
mean, you see this, and here's the thing: a lot of people don't want to work, and that's the truth. But maybe a lot of people can't find jobs because, you know, illegal immigrants are taking over. What do
Yeah.
you make of that?
Honestly, illegal immigrants, I don't think it's an excuse anymore. There's no way that an illegal can have a degree in mechanical engineering and take your job in NASA. Last time I checked, NASA, SpaceX, what is it, Rivian, all these space and technology and futuristic companies need people. So what I suggest is the people that are complaining that there isn't a job market, it's either because they're underqualified and we have millions of underqualified people to do basic jobs. If you want a job, go out there, get a degree in a genre that people wouldn't, consistently apply in, and you're guaranteed a job. If you want a job, I highly recommend do something in STEM or do something that has to do with creatives. The only jobs that are for sure not guaranteed are remote jobs and anything that has to do with starting at the bottom. So if you can find a job where you can at least come in as a supervisor because you have certain certificates or you have certain recognitions and licenses. Licenses is a big one if you want to go into brokerage, finance, real estate. You got to find key details that make you stand out, or you got to find people and you need to attend networking events or business networking events where you can maybe meet an owner or maybe meet a CEO or maybe meet somebody from the sales and hiring rep committee and get yourself a job. You really have to
Yeah,
play ball to get a job. A lot of people are lazy, like you mentioned. Some people want to work less than 10 hours a day and make $27 an hour, which is outrageous without any education or degree. And a lot of people are just terrible, lazy workers. They don't have a resume, they don't have any history of doing anything, even in high school. Um, what I did was that in high school, I started my own company, I started my own businesses. And if you start something, it's difficult, but you're guaranteed a job. If you don't work, you don't make any more money. But if you go out there and work for somebody else, then it's a bit easier, but you have to make sure you're qualified.
yeah, you're right. So it's a choice. Get a job or don't. But what are the consequences with that? Well, if you get a job, well, you at least make money to
Right.
where you can go to maybe buy a house, where you can maybe go to buy a car, to live a life, to live a fulfilled life. Now, it doesn't mean you're going to be rich or anything, of course, but when you are lazy and you don't want to work, then you're not going to have a good life. You can't
Exactly.
do nothing. You're gonna be homeless. So I mean, a lot of homelessness, that's a choice. And now going on to the opioid crisis. I mean, drugs. When you look at it, most homeless people are, you know, taking drugs. They'd rather
Yeah.
have drugs. Now it's an addiction, and I know, but you do need to get help for that. Thoughts there, Jared?
I think the opioid crisis is insane. It's outrageous. We just had a bust of over, I believe it was 100. 100,000 pounds of fentanyl in only LA County. Um, when the fentanyl crisis of 20, I would say 2021, 2022, we had
Mm-hmm.
over 18 kids overdose in just a week in the LAUSD districts. We have kids now who are, what is it called, brain dead, vegetable state, who
Mm.
can't live because of that fentanyl crisis we had in 2022. I think a lot of it comes down to the distribution. I guess we got to understand how it works in political um, affairs when it comes to international affairs too, because if we look at the way it works, China has the largest distribution and manufacturing of fentanyl. India has the largest in opioids. But what do? Instead of distributing from India and China overseas, they do plants and bunkers in Mexico. And everybody knows that Mexico has properties owned by the Chinese government. And by using Mexico as a distribution ring, they can just cross the border into San Diego. San Diego leads into Anaheim, Anaheim into LA, LA into, I don't know, Santa Clarita all the way to Bakersfield, Sacramento, San Francisco, all the way. And it's distributed evenly. So it all comes down about higher security and priority at the border and TSA agents and Homeland Security officials. And it also comes down to children and students understanding that there is risk and understanding that just because your friends are doing it doesn't mean you should, because you never know what could happen in those instances.
Yeah. I mean, it's just it's very sad to see, the addiction and people, on these opioids. And let's just let's move on to the mayoral race. So you are
Okay.
involved in a campaign, and that is with I think his Assad Allinger, who's an
Correct.
independent running for
Mhm.
mayor of LA, who
Right.
has been in the race since March 1st.
Correct.
So so how has it been, you know, working with him on the campaign or volunteering
Um,
for his campaign?
I think it's been pretty incredible. It's been a life-changing experience. I've met a lot of people across TPUSA, whether it's been Cal State Northridge, Long Beach, UCLA, USC. Um, Mainly because my job is to work closer to the youth. I spend a lot of time at City Hall, which is incredible because I never thought I would be standing at the top of City Hall. When I'm with him, when we go over strategic points on how we're going to fix LA, it's incredible to see the things that people wouldn't think about. Um, there's a lot of issues, there's a lot of moving parts that people don't consider. And when people talk about street lighting, when people talk about the sewer system, when people talk about better systems for speeds for cars speeding on the street, everybody blames the mayor. But all of that has its departments, like the street lighting bureau or the safety of sanitation for the metro system. So it's all these issues that come together, and he actually can break it down. Asad Al-Najjar has over 36 years of service working inside of City Hall for the city. His main tactic was actually building the underground subway metro system, which I think is pretty cool. Meeting the person who created the system that you use as your main source of transportation, I think it's awesome. Um, he's a great guy. He's always been helpful when it comes to serving the community. He's a volunteer for LAPD, LAFD. He helped Porter Ranch when there was the fire crisis to get waters in there for the volunteers. He works on the it's one of the packs for LAPD when they do their neighborhood watches. What is the highest amount of crime? There's honestly not an area in the city that he hasn't touched or worked in. So Sad Anajar is a great guy. I really reflect on a lot of the messages that he brings to the city, and a lot of it's kind of like the things I would want to see if I was running for mayor. If I was running for mayor, I'd say, how can you fix public policy? And when I ask him, it's like he tells me, okay, so it starts at the homeless level, and then breaking it down to families, veterans, and children's, and then it comes to the drug addicts, and then it comes to the medication and the psychologists. And it's like This guy knows like every single talking point when it comes to any area or any genre of the city, that I think even though there's sometimes things that we don't agree on, he's one of those guys that really puts Los Angeles first. And that's what Los Angeles really needs right now.
Yeah, so I was going to ask the question, why do you think that this candidate is the right guy? I think that kind of summed it up and answered a little bit. So now I'm going to do my poll segment. So
Okay.
I put out a poll just today
Mm-hmm.
um, on Instagram, and you can find that on my story on Instagram. Who would you vote for LA mayor? So we have Karen Bass, who's the incumbent. She's also a Democrat.
Mm-hmm.
0% say Karen Bass. Assad, who's the independent, 33%. And Spencer Pratt, who's the Republican, 67%. Please do
Right.
not do 6-7. I will lose it. But yeah, so that is the poll. Jared, thanks for being on here. You just did it. Okay. So thanks, Jared, for being on here. If you haven't already, like and subscribe. That gives us a big boost. And we will catch you next time. Next episode, February 20th, which is a Friday, of course. We will be talking about Kamala Harris. So, is she going to make that run for 2028? Who knows? Or do we know? Do we? Do we? Anyways, we'll catch you next time. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks so much, Jared, for being here.
Of course.